Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 6th of December of the calendar year 2024, wherever you may be. Uh, Cold and frigid day, although temperatures starting to pick up a little bit. You see, I have the bad boy going here. Know some of you guys in parts of the states are living in these colder temperatures like myself over here. Stay warm the best you possibly can, and just don't go outside unless you have to, because after about 5 minutes, you start to feel it. Because I went outside earlier to pick up a delivery that took place that came to my house earlier. I lasted all about 20 seconds, and man, after that, the first 10 seconds I was fine. The 10 seconds after that, whew, I felt it. I ran back inside. I stayed in ever since. Uh, See the bad boys going keeps me nice, warm, and cozy on this Friday night, and just ready to enjoy the weekend. Actually, got some couple extra days off here in the middle, so I'm gonna sit back and relax a little bit. Uh, some big things coming up this weekend. I'm going to touch on those here in a little bit, but as always, stay cool, stay warm, kick back, relax, enjoy the day. Now, of course, last night the big game between Green Bay and Detroit. Great game both ways. Offenses both up and down. Of course, Detroit's defense was depleted. Green Bay, was able to at times, you know, didn't really do as much as the score indicated because one of their touchdowns came after that questionable and suspect fourth down call by Dan Campbell inside their own 30, which I'll touch on here in a little bit with Dan Campbell. But it was a good game back and forth. Uh, Solid win for Detroit. They complete the season sweep against Green Bay. Uh, they're in full control of their own destiny when it comes to the NFC North and possibly the number one seed in the NFC, although the Philadelphia Eagles are on their tails. Uh, what can you say? This offense can do almost anything and everything they want to. Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, knows how to get into his bag and mix things up. And you know, what can you say? They're playing pretty darn good ball right now. And of course, I have a bunch of Packers fans complaining about the officiating, which I'll touch on the officials here in a minute, because you guys are starting to sound as bad as Bengals fans. You don't want to be in the category as Bengals fans because that's embarrassing. Uh, but good game all the way around. Both offenses got going. Defenses neither were overly existent. Although to be fair, Detroit was depleted. I mean, basically they have. I think at least someone posted. I think something like 7 or 8 guys on their injury reserve, which is crazy. Which shows how great Detroit has been the season, being having won 11 straight, being 11-1. But the NFC playoff picture started to take shape. Detroit now becomes the first team to officially clinch in the NFC when it comes to the playoffs. I expect Green Bay to eventually clinch also because they have a bit of a softer schedule the rest of the way. But big win at home for Detroit. They complete the sweep of Green Bay. Now they can look to bigger and better things. I think Green Bay will be fine. They will eventually bounce back. Uh, it was a good game back and forth, but Detroit won at home. Kudos to them. Of course, their head coach Dan Campbell is one of a unique kind. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees it. If you're in the NFL, you know it, you see it, and you read about it. And you probably now know about it. What can you say? Seems to me he thinks the mind like the casual fans like myself. I mean, he has this very unique mindset and very awesome, cool approach to a game that I haven't seen in quite some time. I mean, his post game locker room speech was absolutely terrific. His post game press conferences were absolutely spot on. I mean, yeah, he does things that make you scratch your head and make you second guess. But he's one of those guys that seems to me that wants to go get it. I mean, he wants to go get it by any means necessary, even if it means you know taking the good with the bad, taking should be the bad with the good, taking with the cons with the pros. Sometimes his calls could come with a blessing and a curse, but that's who Dan Campbell is. I mean, you couldn't be any other way. I mean, there's a reason why they went to the NFC Championship game last season. There's a reason why they more than likely will be there this season. I mean, he's gonna do things that makes you scratch your head, but he's gonna do things that's gonna make you say, "Holy crap! How the world does he do it?" I mean, the fourth down run that set up the game-winning field goal, that that's as they say, that takes a bigger sack of balls to do. But I've said this all along. When you get a chance to go for a win like that and not give the other team the possession, you go get it done. That's what Dan Campbell did on that play. I mean, they give the ball to Montgomery, shoots the gap, gets the first down, kneels down, shoots the game-winning field goal as time expired. Uh, Green Bay doesn't get the ball back. Of course, they asked Dan Campbell about it, and he basically said, "I'm not going to give them the ball back. I'm not taking any chances. I have a chance to get the win here, and I'm going to go get it." I mean, there's no conservative approach with him. I mean, he's a go-getter. I mean, if he has a chance to go get something, he's going to go get it. It's one of those things where you have to live with the results, good or bad. But if he has a chance to get something, he's going to go get it. And of course, he's more likely, or at least possibly, can win the NFL Coach of the Year this season. Mike Tomlin and Kevin O'Connor might have a little something to say about that. I think it's going to be a close vote. But how the heck can you not like Dan Campbell? I mean, especially in the locker room, apparently someone was vomiting, and he basically said to the guy, "Hey, I see you throwing up. Just go ahead and throw up." I mean, how can you not like this guy? I mean, Dan Campbell, I don't know about coaching range. I don't know what qualifies for it, but he's got to be up there. They're 11-1 for a reason, and he's doing something right. I mean, he knows the thing is he knows the pulse of his team, and that's why they're successful the way they are. I mean, Dan Campbell probably about maybe about 9 or 10 teams probably wouldn't want him, but the other 20 plus probably would. That's just how terrific Dan Campbell is. And the reason why I say don't is because they're probably more established coaches, like Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, just to name a few. But Dan Campbell, I just love the guy. I mean, he seems to be a go getter. When he has a chance to get something, and when he has a chance to make a play and make us, get something for a win, he's going to go ahead and do it. That's what he did on that fourth down play. Of course, there was a fourth down play inside their own 30 plus, but I don't know what he was thinking. But as I said, sometimes you got to take the bad with the good, the cons with the pros. That's what Dan Campbell is. I mean, he might just it might just, with this approach, just might will this team to the NFC title game, and it might be played in Detroit. So, I mean, they're doing something right in Detroit right now. So you have to tip your hat off to them. We'll see. We'll see what happens. They're probably going to win the North at this rate. They still have to play Minnesota again, which they'll probably win that. Uh, I know Detroit's defense is a little depleted, but still, the fact that Dan Campbell had this defense playing pretty well as they did speaks volumes. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks because NFC playoff picture is starting to take shape. Looks like we're headed for a Detroit Philly NFC title game at this rate for now. Things happen in the playoffs. We know this. But for now, Detroit and Philly are a collision course for the NFC title. Now, of course, everybody in Green Bay and, of course, everybody in the NFL likes to make the bunch of this when it comes to refereeing. Of course, apparently, there's a couple of so-called egregious calls that Green Bay likes to throw out. I don't know. I've seen a couple of them, so at best. But now, of course, everyone who says the NFL always favored the Chiefs now saying the NFL is favoring the Detroit Lions. I mean, the referees are favoring the Detroit Lions. First of all, I said all along, if you're complaining about the referees, and that means your team is not good enough to win ball games. That's why I have to say, let's get that out of the way. Let's get to the second part of this. You know, they're not going to get every call right. They're not going to get every call wrong. However, you want to diagram it. If you're one of these guys who wants to see every call made, congratulations, you're asking for a dull and dry and unwatchable product. Because there's got to be a balance when it comes to refereeing good, bad, pretty, ugly, or however you want to diagnose it. Look, I've seen missed calls all over the place. I've seen really bad ones where it happens in front of your face and it happens. But those aren't the reason why teams win or lose. If you're resorting to saying the referees, cost us games, referees cost us this, basically you're trying to say your team is not good enough to win ball games. It doesn't matter if it's the NFL, the NBA, or umpiring in baseball. It doesn't matter. I said there's got to be a balance here, And if you're trying to, if you're one of those ones that wants every call made in every game, it's going to be an unwatchable product, which basically is going to be prolonged to like 4 or 5 hours, which is I believe the real time sometimes with commercials, what, about 3 hours a piece, and it's going to be unwatchable, and the ratings is going to drop. Now, for vice versa, if you're one of those that wants to see the flags put in the pockets and no calls being made, you know, and of course, now you're complaining about something else. Why isn't the call being made? We cannot take away the human element of refereeing. I get it. I get the perception it sometimes creates. But to simply point this ideology that the referees just miss calls intentionally and blatantly to where you feel like your team is victimized by some form of conspiracy theory and some kind of victimization of some sorts. That's not it. Good teams, if referees have bad days, good teams find ways to win those games. That's why Kansas City won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. That's why the New England Patriots had their dynasty, because there was a bunch of you guys out here during that Patriots dynasty that said the exact same thing. The refs favor the Patriots. Refs help the Patriots. The refs gift wrap the win to the Patriots. And I find it funny that 90% of the people that make these claims are either on losing end of ball games or either have teams that aren't good enough to win ball games. Like I say, if you have, that's the only claim you have, you don't have a leg to stand on. Simply because the plays are done on the field. Do refs miss calls from time to time? Yes, they do. I get it. Are they the reason why you guys lose games? No. You're supposed to be good. The game is 60 minutes. 6-0, not 1-6. 6-0, and you better win during most of the 60 minutes to show on the final scoreboard. Doesn't mean the referees had a say so in it. The referees don't throw the passes. The referees don't block. The referees don't catch balls. The referees can't run. The referees can't tackle. They can't sack the quarterback. That's what has to be said about the refs. So I don't like talking about refs. I think the discussion of refs is one of the most phoniest things you could talk about in all of sports. You just got to let the players play. I mean, you have every right to say the refs made a bad call. I get it. But don't go as far as saying they're the reason why you guys lost a game, because that's just real pity. That's just real petty. That's just real lame. And that's just really ridiculous. So I'll just end that part right there. So, another topic in the NFL, the news just broke about an hour ago. I guess it has to do with that $230 million fully guaranteed quarterback in Cleveland. I guess he was in another issue with allegations, and it turns up that right here a little bit. There you go. That it turns out that sorry for there you go. Apparently, it was a settlement that took place where I guess now is not exonerated, and he's back on. The NFL is not going to do anything about it because the case was dismissed or whatever it is, or a settlement was taking place. I love this so much simply because, as I said all along, it's now time for the NFL for the Cleveland Browns and those fans up there in Cleveland or anyone affiliated with the Browns to sleep in the bed they lie in, and they might as well start doing it now. Simply because you guys threw intentionally and blatantly Baker Mayfield under the bus after losing that playoff game to Kansas City in 2020. You wanted him out the door for no reason at all. Absolutely none. You got this guy, and I told you 3 years ago when you guys got him, this was going to be the result. You guys didn't want to listen, and now you guys are paying dearly for it. And I have nothing to say to you guys. And I'm glad this happened because now you guys are forced to be stuck with him. You guys are trying to beg your way out of the contract, trying to beg your way to get him off the team. And now you're basically stuck because you have to fully pay this guy till the end of his contract. I think is like 2027 or 26 or something around there. But you guys made that bed. Now, please shut up and go lie in it because that's all you deserve right now after the way you did Baker Mayfield dirty when you ran him out of Cleveland for the longest time, simply because we told you what the result was going to be. Look at what Baker Mayfield's doing in Tampa Bay right now. Look what he's doing right now. He got that big playoff win last year over Philly. His momentum carried over into this season. He's still playing well for a while. Was in that MVP conversation. While this quarterback is still under all kinds of allegations, investigations. taking a dump on the bed in Cleveland, and basically you guys' record are as what a result. No, I don't want to hear about him being 5-1 last season because they were 5-1 because they were carried by a stout defense led by Myles Garrett, not because you had the $230 million quarterback on the roster. And right now, Baker Mayfield down there in Tampa Bay is just enjoying himself because he's away from the toxic that is you guys known as the Cleveland Browns organization and the Cleveland Browns fans. Because you guys willfully, blatantly, and intentionally, for no reason at all, wanted to throw him under the bus after the loss of Kansas City. Apparently, it was not good enough for you. You didn't even say why he wasn't good enough for you. You still haven't said why you wanted to get rid of Baker Mayfield after a playoff loss. Look at what's happened since. He had one playoff appearance. That was, of course, last season. And of all places, Houston, the team that you made that move to get the quarterback for, and you got ran out of Houston, and you still haven't explained why that happened. Right now, you guys are getting flat out exactly what you deserve, and I'm sitting here enjoying it because right now, you guys threw him under the bus. Now you made that bed. Shut up, go lie in it, because it's time for you guys, time for the chickens to come home to roost for this particular situation. That's, I got that out of the way because because we told you 3 years ago, you guys thought getting this quarterback was going to run Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow out of the AFC North. Uh-uh. They're still here and they're still better than your guy, whether you like it or not. Hope you guys living life in the basement right now. So that's my NFL synopsis. Quick news on the NBA before I get to the fight game. Earlier today, it was reported that Kevin Durant basically said that the best quote point guard end quote that he played with was none other than Devin Booker. Remember this guy played with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Steph Curry. Or that James Harden is more of a combo card like Devin Booker. Of course, he's going to say that because that's his current teammate. That's who Kevin Durant is. You know, I mean, we know how Kevin Durant is. When things go his way, he'll prop you up. But when something goes bad, he'll find a way to throw you under the bus, like he did to Russell Westbrook when he left Oklahoma City. Now, of course, Russell Westbrook didn't help his own cause, but that's who Kevin Durant is. Maybe one of the more sensitive, knee-jerk, athletes maybe ever. Look, I've been the biggest Kevin Durant fan. I try Canada, defend his play on the court because he's an elite all-time great scorer. There's no question about it. I mean, it's not the fact he's an all-time great scorer. His efficiency is through the roof. But the way he left Oklahoma City to Golden State, we know the story there. Oklahoma City was up 3-1, lost the series 4-3. Kevin Durant jumps over to play with Steph Curry instead of Russell Westbrook. And of course, he wins his two titles. And basically wins two finals MVPs with a, if you want to call this a championship ready team, just to take out the Cleveland Cavaliers led by LeBron James, where I'm not the biggest LeBron James fan either. But this is who Kevin Durant is at the end of the day. If he's with you, he's going to love you to death. He's going to hug you. He's going to kiss you. He's going to do everything to prop you up to make you like the greatest thing he's ever seen, the greatest thing that basketball has ever seen. But when things are going to go bad, he's going to throw you under the bus. He did it to Russell Westbrook over in Oklahoma City. No, he did it to a couple guys a couple times when he left Golden State, and he did that in Brooklyn. Now he calls Devin Booker, the greatest point guard he's ever played with. And of course, we all know, he's played with better guards. Nothing against Devin Booker, who's more of a combo guard than a pure point guard. But when something happens here, he's going to find a way to throw Devin Booker under the bus. He's become the NBA's version of Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to go as far as call him a narcissist and a coward because Aaron Rodgers is a different category in that regard. But he's approaching that territory. I mean, the guy's career outside of jumping to Golden State and winning two titles is basically irrelevant, except a bunch of empty stats and an MVP in the 2014 season. Basically, Durant's in do or die mode right now with his career. And if he doesn't get anything done, before his career is done, his career is basically going to be raising question marks. I've always said, even he won the two titles. How did he win those two titles, and who did he win them with? That's why I can't put him on the pedestal amongst the top all-time great players in terms of accomplishments. Had he won one in Oklahoma City, we're having another conversation. Had he won one in Brooklyn, we're having a different conversation. Of course, there was that game against Milwaukee where he had the toe on the line. You know, makes it no three turned out to be the toe on the line. We know how that went, but I'm not surprised this came out of Kevin Durant's mouth. Let's see what happens if he follows through with this down the line, because we know how Kevin Durant can be. Standout player, high efficient score, maybe the most efficient score of this era, because he's basically a jump shooter who shoots 50 to 55% just basically on jump shots. And his basketball IQ when it comes to shooting is surreal. But in terms of career accolades, he doesn't have anything to show right now. What does he have? Just an MVP, two finals and two finals MVPs on a team that was already 73-9 before he went there. That's a Kevin Durant legacy right now. I don't talk much NBA, but I started to talk about that a little bit because I've had a couple of people say, talk some NBA there. I'm glad you're happy. I'll talk more down the line, maybe. Now to my specialty and to all my fight followers out there. A couple big fights in a couple countries. Of course, the first one is taking place overseas. This is the showdown between, I'm going to pull this up here, got some notes. Brad Pauls versus Denzel Bentley. I bring this up because I saw here in the States, it was televised a fight overseas. This is between, I'm going to pull, hang on here. Here we go. Between Denzel Bentley, I can't think of his opponent's name. I lost the sight here. In his last fight where he stopped Lonsdale Belt, he had another fight where he basically threw a vicious uppercut where the guy's hand was hanging down and just threw an overhand right and knocked him out. Remember, he was 2 years removed from fighting Janabek for those belts, and basically Janabek, got the decision. Although Bentley acquitted himself well, had a tough loss to Nathan Heady. Was revealed. I didn't know this till a couple of my fight followers in England told me. He has gone through some personal stuff, but he has bounced back and bounced back rather nicely. I mean, what can you say? Um, Actually, I stand corrected. The knockout of the year he had was against a fighter named Derek Osazi, where if you pull on YouTube, you can't miss it. I mean, he hits it with the uppercut so hard, his left hand was basically down. He's basically down like this with his left side of his face exposed. Bentley just times it with the right hand. Osazi goes face first to the floor, and the party is over. Denzel Bentley, I said all along for you guys in Britain, is one of the more real interesting stories, and his redemption since the loss to Haiti has been absolutely second to none. Just seeing him back up here now, a chance to fight for the championship, more likely a rematch with Janabek because Azim Shiraz wanted to be a coward. It's absolutely a remarkable story. If he can manage to beat Brad Pauls, who was no pushover, and I think it's going to be a pretty darn good fight in that middleweight division overseas. He managed to get the title shot, and somehow manages to beat Janabek. His redemption story is complete. I mean, this guy basically went through a real personal situation that came through to light during his loss to Nathan Heady. Came back, beat belt for a belt, knocked out Osazi, and basically could possibly be the candidate for knockout of the year in 2024. And if he beats Pauls and gets a fight with Janabek, you guys have something over there cooking in England. And I said all along, over there, the UK culture when it comes to the middleweight, super middleweight divisions, it's rather deep and solid. I mean, if Denzel Bentley can pull this off tomorrow, and it's very, very possible because I actually have him winning, we're having a new conversation. And we're going to start to talk about him there, and he'll probably get that title shot. I mean, good luck to Denzel Bentley. I mean, he's one of those guys I said all along over there for my followers in England. You guys have someone there to root for, and I'm looking forward to seeing him, get the job done. I'll be rooting for him here in the States. So there's one fight this weekend. Second one is the rematch between Emmanuel Navarette and Oscar Drug Cheat Valdez. Question I have is why are we having this rematch? I mean, wasn't the fact, I mean, nothing against Oscar Valdez. I mean, he loves his being a drug cheat. We know this. The last time he was relevant, he got his ears boxed off by Shakur Stevenson. And later on, he gets his ears boxed off by Oscar Valdez in the first, Emmanuel Navarette in the first fight. Now, of course, Navarette sort of plateaued a little bit, lost his last couple few fights since. But the issue I have here is this fight was so one-sided. Why are we taking going down this route, and why do they this so-called governing body feel the need to put this fight together after it declared Valdez a mandatory for Navarette's title when Navarette basically just gave him a boxing lesson the first time, and I expect him to do the same again tomorrow night. It is not a shot against Oscar Valdez. This more has to do with how the business of boxing works. Everybody knows where I stand on the business of boxing because it is an absolute cutthroat and an absolute joke and a half, especially for 90% of you morons in the boxing community out here who called Daniel Dubois a world champion when Daniel Dubois has a fake belt. Now, I'll get to that next year. But when it comes to this fight, I don't expect anything different. I mean, no, Navarette is sort of leveled out a bit, and I think Valdez should do better the second time. But I don't know how much better it would be for him because I still don't see him being Emmanuel Navarette. I said in those weight classes a few years ago when he knocked out Isaac Dobe, he was going to be a problem, and he basically racked up several belts and several titles. One of the more distinguished fighters in those weight classes, maybe right now. I mean, good fighter can very tall and lanky for a super featherweight featherweight divisions. I mean, you don't see guys that tall or that built the way he is. I mean, I know Oscar Valdez loves him some tattoos, loves him some PEDs, but I can't see how he finds a way to get revenge on Emmanuel Navarette unless Navarette just comes in, you know, with a blank brain or something. I mean, they say there's levels to this. Navarette already showed him the first time there was levels, and he's going to show him there's levels again tomorrow night. And I expect Navarette to come away with probably a unanimous decision win. Maybe a little closer than the first time, but I don't not to where I think Valdez overtakes Navarette unless he's on the PEDs again. Now then, speaking of big time fights, we're going to go back to a time where probably the most hotly disputed decision in heavyweight championship boxing history. This took place 75 years ago at Madison Square Garden. And I'm going to bring this up because the fight community loves talking about robberies. I'm going to give you example one here. This was 75 years ago at Madison Square Garden, the first meeting between Joe Louis and Jersey Joe Walcott. The Joe Louis reign we talked about many times, well chronicled. 12 years, 25 successful title defenses, 1937 to 1949 is forever known as the Joe Louis era. Here comes Jersey Joe Walcott, distinguished career, worked his way up to the number one spot. Had a couple of losses to Ezra Charles in there. This was a part of a four kings run of the heavyweight division from 1947 to 1951, which featured Joe Louis, Ezra Charles, Jersey Joe Walcott, and Rocky Marciano. This was in the middle of all of that, and basically, it reminds you guys of the community again. It wasn't for these belts like the fake one Daniel Dubois has. This was a one belt, undisputed heavyweight championship era where one belt was winner take all. That's what Joe Louis, Jersey Joe Walcott was, and that's what it was for the longest time during that era. Jersey Joe Walcott was basically a slickster, loves to use a ring, use a jab, do he can to keep you at distance, and that's basically what he did to Joe Louis for a big chunk of this fight. Basically, the tone was set in the opening seconds where he floored Louis early. It basically kept Louis at bay for most of the fight. Louis started to slowly come on and have his moments, but for the most part, Jersey Joe Walcott did his best to stay away from that lethal right hand of Joe Louis, to where, if everybody knows, probably the most lethal right hand of that era, especially in the heavyweight division. Basically did it for all 15 rounds and looked like he was going to be on his way to a decision win and become the heavyweight champion of the world. Then, of course, as we know, what the three guys, so-called judges, see at ringside is something totally different. And here's where the fun begins. Let me remind you guys of the boxing community again. You guys complained about scoring, how the fights are scored. Back then, it was the round system. They weren't scoring the 10-point must system, the 5-point must system, the what your mama looks like point system, what you look like in the bathroom point system. This was the round system. You win. You win the round. It's declared the winner. One judge had it 7-6-2 Jersey Joe Walcott in rounds. One judge had it 8-6-1 for Lewis in rounds. And the third one was 9-6 for Lewis in rounds. And Joe Louis was declared the winner on a very controversial split decision to retain this heavyweight championship of the world. They pulled at least 55 beat writers who tallied the fight from various panels all over the place. Maybe not the ones anybody would recognize, but it's very telling that 47 of them had Jersey Joe Walcott winning, 7 of them had Joe Louis winning, 1 had it a draw. That should tell you how bad of a decision this was. Actually, it was so bad that Joe Louis basically admitted after the fight. I don't know what they were watching. I basically lost the fight, and he basically apologized to Jersey Joe Walcott for all of this happening. I mean, he basically admitted defeat in this fight afterwards. And of course, this would prompt a rematch down the line, where it's probably the end of the line of the terrific run of the great Joe Louis, where he explodes and gets a 10th round knockout on Walcott, where basically he turns back the clock and just pulverizes Walcott, and that's all she wrote. But how Joe Louis handled this loss is something that's not talked about enough. He basically admitted, "Yep, I got beat." I mean, what can you say? I mean, he basically said it was there. I got Jersey Joe Walcott outboxed me. Didn't make any excuses. Didn't say anything about anything extravagant that you see today's boxers say. He basically owned the defeat, defeat in a fight that he was gift wrapped a decision. He basically said, Jersey Joe Walcott beat me. And of course, as I said, it prompted the rematch. And basically, Jersey Joe Walcott, was knocked out. It was probably the last time we saw Joe Louis in the ring at that point, because he would retire after the second Walcott fight. Was forced to come back because apparently he was under investigation for tax evasion. They had 2 bad losses to Ezra Charles and Rocky Marciano. Jersey Joe Walcott eventually did become the heavyweight title in the middle of a 4-fight series with Ezra Charles. Lost the first 2, won the third and fourth ones to get the title. And of course, had the 2 fights with Rocky Marciano. The first one, probably the most iconic punch in heavyweight title history, where the Marciano right cross turns Walcott's lips and face sideways, and he beats him again. But, and of course, Rocky Marciano retires undefeated. Jersey Joe Walcott, probably a top 20 all-time great heavyweight. Again, all subject to opinion. But 75 years ago, you guys in the boxing community love talking about robberies, calling every fight a robbery. Every fight a robbery. Read about this one. That's what a robbery is. Not Devin Haney, Vasyl Lomachenko. Joe Louis and Jersey Joe Walcott won. Actually, let me tell you, I put it this way, like this. There's bad decisions, and then there's robberies. I'll agree that Devin Haney, Vasyl Lomachenko is a bad decision. I get it. That's not a robbery. Robberies is what took place 75 years ago today. Robberies is what happened to Pernell Whitaker on at least 2 separate occasions. Robberies is what happened to Marvin Hagler when he fought Vito Transformo in 1979. Robberies is what happened to Lennox Lewis when he fought Evander Holyfield the first time in 1999. Those are robberies. You guys in the boxing community need to start distinguishing the difference a little bit, because a lot of you guys are so illiterate, you guys don't get it. Bad decisions, and then it's basically competitive. It can go either way. You agree or disagree. But robberies is when someone wins rather openly, and the judges egregiously and willfully just take it away from you. That's a robbery. And that's what happened 75 years ago today to Jersey Joe Walcott when he fought Joe Louis at Madison Square Garden. And again, this was the round system, which I would love to see it go back to that, because it'll draw better conclusions on scoring. Basically, if you declare the round is over, they pick the winner of the round. Not these 10-point must systems, the 5-point must systems, not what you look like standing in front of a mirror point system, not what you look like standing on your head at point system. round system. You win the round is over. They only declare one winner of the round. That's what it was back then. And of course, also back then, the referee scored the fights too, which I believe the referee was the one that scored it for Walcott. So, but it was basically that egregious. Even Joe Louis, which is something a lot of fighters and a lot of people in the community can learn from. Joe Louis graciously handled it well as anyone possibly could. Basically admitted that he got beat that night by Jersey Joe Walcott, and basically went to a rematch and basically put Jersey Joe Walcott out in the 10th round to end any doubts. That's how you handle a situation like that. Handle it with class, handle it with dignity, get it back in the ring for a rematch, put him away, don't leave it to the judges. That's what Joe Louis did to Jersey Joe Walcott 75 years ago. And this was a part of a Four Kings heavyweight run that featured Joe Louis, Cincinnati's own Ezra Charles, Walcott, and of course Rocky Marciano, the middle of a wild fight heavyweight era, which had, I believe, like the equivalent like 11 fights between these four guys. So I know Walcott and Charles fought four times, and of course Lewis and Walcott fought twice. Lewis and uh, Marciano fought. Uh, Marciano fought Charles and Walcott twice each. So yeah, that was a real Four Kings era of them four standout heavyweights from 1947 to 1951. And man, it was a heck of an era for the heavyweight division then. Maybe it doesn't stack up to what happened in the 70s or the 90s, but this one is pretty darn close, just for these four alone. But it was 75 years ago today that Jersey Joe Walcott was denied his rightful, you know, win to become the heavyweight champion of the world. And Joe Louis basically admitted it, went out there, got a rematch, ended it with an explosive 10th round knockout, and was probably his last win as a heavyweight champ, maybe the end of his tenure as champion. But what an era that was. That's how you're supposed to do it, boxing community. Handle it with class, handle it with disgrace, shut up, get a rematch, push for a knockout. Don't leave it to the judges. That's what Joe Louis did. And on that note, I am going to end this Friday night edition of Sirhan on X. Hope everyone out there is staying nice and warm out there for these cold, frigid temperatures, especially my fellow folks here in Cincinnati. Supposed to actually come up. Temperature's supposed to jump up over here over the next couple of days. As always, I like to say to everybody, make self-care your number one priority. Always, always take care of yourselves first. Because I know I see the stories from a lot of you guys out there. I understand it. But it comes down to the fact you have to take care of yourselves first. Make self-care your number one priority in every walk of life. I do. And I'm gonna sit here, just sit here by this nice cozy thing and just stay warm while the cold front finds its way out of the town finally after a few rough cold days. But until then, I will be back Monday. Hope everyone has themselves a wonderful Friday, Saturday, and weekend. Actually, one last thing to touch on is the Big Ten game, Ohio State, Big Ten game between Oregon and Penn State. Give me Oregon in that matchup. Let's end it right there. Let's say good night. Take care. God bless. Enjoy the day and enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games and the fights, everyone.